So
So I think
anyway,
we both, yeah, go
yeah, yeah,
ahead.
yeah, no, no, no. So like again, now we're moving into more of the professional sports,
Yeah, but I think
because
it's also, if we talk about professional sports, so we both agree. I just want to make sure that this is like, we're both on the same page. We kind of both agree on the student athlete front, right?
yeah,
That like,
yeah, 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 yeah. So I agree with you there. My issue then arises in your argument about the correlation between sports and education.
for
Personally,
sure, for sure.
personally, so yes, a country like South Korea doesn't put much of the importance on its sports.
Yes.
I agree with you there, but in my opinion, I don't think there's much of a connection. Because then my argument against that is, it seems like a lot of the if you look at Japan or South Korea, um, what a lot of their importance is on education. My main issue with that is that education for them means test scores. Because in Japan and South Korea, there is one final test that determines basically where you go to work. That
I
is,
mean,
and
that's the truth about a lot of
in a
countries, although in America, how is it different?
we don't have that in my opinion. And especially for Japan, imagine this: it's like the SATs, but the stakes are higher.
No, no,
If
no.
you
I
don't,
mean, here's the thing, right? It's not as severe. I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't know what the test is called in South Korea. I don't know what the test is called in Japan. But China is the same system, like the Gaokao, right?
yeah.
And then like India has like a similar system as well. Their board
Mm-hmm.
exams. A lot of Asian countries, it seems, has the
Mm-hmm.
have the exact same system. So it's a wonder why they hate each other. But whatever. They have the same educational system
Mm-hmm.
in that way. And the US doesn't have something as intense,
Mm-hmm.
but they have it in the same form, right?
But here's my thing though.
There's
Here's
still the
my
SAT.
but okay. But here's my thing. For countries like Korea and Japan, maybe I'm just speaking from experience, from anecdotal experiences, but apparently,
Mhm.
I'm when I've talked to Korean friends of mine,
Yeah,
well, specifically their parents, to gain a perspective on, because they've lived and have gone through the whole Korean education system
yes.
and Japanese education system. I've asked them just out of curiosity, because I've been interested in this as well, about the correlation between sports, because I've always, as a joke, I used to really like watching soccer, and so the World Cup is always something that I was interested by, and
Sure.
I was like, why do Asian countries fucking suck? Why do they suck? Why do they suck so much?
It's because of
Um,
the emphasis thing, right? It's
yeah,
exactly because of that. Yeah.
apparently there's a much higher stigma around sports. It's seen as something. Apparently back then, sports was seen as something that, I don't know how it is now, but it was seen as something that only dumb people did because they had no other options.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, in my opinion, a system like that, and also a system like that, judging from what I've seen about the Korean society and its education system, it's not very well balanced, in my honest opinion.
It's
It's
so, yeah,
like
you're right.
I've talked to, again, Korean people, native Koreans, who have told me how their education, they would go to school and they would go to an additional tutoring academy
Hmm.
up
Like
until
a
eight,
cram school.
like a
Yeah.
cram school. They would stay there
Yeah.
until 8 p.m. and then
Hmm.
walk back home. I was like,
Hmm.
what in the god? What do you have to do? I asked him, like, what did you guys do with your free time? One of them literally told me unironically, we didn't have free time. Like,
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not, okay. So I should have maybe
I
chosen
don't
better countries.
I don't think, again, I think, my opinion is that
Yeah.
I don't think there is a very huge correlation between sports and education.
I think there's a correlation between cultural emphasis and education, though.
Okay, but how do you define culture? The culture is such a transient thing and such an ambiguous thing,
It's
though.
okay,
It's
so
hard
it
to
is and
it's hard to
it's
quantify.
not.
It's hard to
No, so
quantify.
culture, well, I know culture is hard to quantify, and it's also not. Where it's hard to quantify in the sense of like you don't exactly know what's popular all the time, but you can tell generally by like money spent, right? I mean, I don't think this is a controversial thing. Where if you think like
Okay.
how much does this society spend on sports versus games versus this versus that?
Mm-hmm.
Like a country like South Korea, I don't think I would be wrong to say that like K-pop is probably very big in South Korea, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Or gaming is probably big. I mean, because we've seen infrastructure
Yeah.
built off of those two things.
Mm-hmm.
In India, right? I won't be wrong to say that, like, Bollywood is a very big thing, right? That's the Indian film industry.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be wrong to say that, like, uh, why did I stick myself in this hole? Okay, whatever. I know Bollywood's a big thing in this country, but like, why do I know more about whatever? Anyway, but I can tell that just by based on like the economic use, right? Based on like
Mm-hmm.
how they spend their money. Now in America, when you think about where people spend their money, ball
Mm-hmm.
games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Football, sports. So sports is very centered or very centric to our culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. I think people agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think movies are also kind of big, but I don't think they're as big as sports. I think right now eSports are even bigger. So, so you know what? Maybe you'll like my argument more if I say that I think esports and sports are having a negative effect on our society because they promote, sort of like alternative paths to get around education. And that I think that we really need an educated public. And the fact that we don't have, in my opinion, we don't have, like a nation that prioritizes like logic and reasoning and everything. I think part of it comes from the way our culture functions.
But what's your see? I have two issues with that. One, you said you can
Go
measure
ahead.
you can measure the economic effects. You can measure
The
the
economic
cultural
out the spending, culture
you
by
can
spending.
measure the cultural emphasis through economic dispensaries. So that so the economic spending and all that. My question to you then is, where do you quantify? Let's say, for example, country A spends 6,000. This is a very arbitrary number, $6,000 on sports. Very low fucking number. No country would do that unless you're like a small ass island or whatever.
Well, it
But
depends on how much of it's
but it's
percentage wise.
exactly. But let's say $6,000, right? six thousand
Sure,
dollars.
sure.
Where is the indicator that says where is the bar, the bar at which you say yes, this culture definitely emphasizes sports. Is it eight thousand
Okay.
dollars, 10,000? You don't know. You honestly you can't just say
No.
oh
So here the thing. Okay, yeah. But my statement is not that we
yeah
spend too
no, no.
much on. Okay,
See, but here's my second rebuttal to that is the reason why America spends so much money in sports is because sports makes us money. It makes sense from an economic standpoint to invest in something that gives you money. For example, Mark
I'm
Cuban.
talking about ticket spends. I'm talking about ticket expenditure.
Well, what do you mean? Sports is the same thing though.
No. I'm not talking about sports investment. I'm talking about like customer spending, like consumer expenditure.
Okay.
That's why you can use that spending to measure it.
Okay,
No,
okay.
dude, a businessman should or woman or whatever, all the et cetera, they should totally he, she, they should all totally like invest in sports. That is not going
Oh,
away.
wait. So, are you
I don't
criticizing
disagree with
people?
this.
Are you criticizing
I'm
society, like
criticizing
people in gen?
society.
People. Okay.
Dude, also I don't hate sports because I think sports is generally not a bad thing. I think we talk about toxic masculinity a lot. I think sports is a really good way for people to sort of work through a lot of things. And I think for a long time, at least the lessons people learned from sports were very good. I personally never really was in that environment that much, but I like sports. I like playing, like I don't know if badminton counts as a sport. I don't know if tennis counts, but like those are
Tennis,
fun to play.
tennis definitely is a sport. I don't know
But
what you're.
like, no. I mean, yeah, but
Tennis definitely is a sport.
I don't
My
play it in
God.
like I don't play it in the same sort of like, state national level way. I play it as like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not criticizing people who like doing fun things.
Hmm.
I love movies, and if someone told me that like you watch movies, how dare you? Then I'd be like, shut up.
So then, can you tell me then what exactly your problem
So
is?
my problem is that I think
That sounds really
societal emphasis
that's sorry. That sounds really passive
so
aggressive. By
passive
the
aggressive. Oh my God. Can you tell me what your problem is? No, Jesus Christ. No, so what I'm saying is that I think that like I think that sports itself is fine. I think
Mhm.
that sports is a way for people to get out energy. very good. All that stuff, down with, right?
Yeah.
But the societal emphasis on sports, like the fact that it's so central to our society and the way that we function, the way that we communicate,
Hmm.
that itself can get a little injurious, deleterious, whatever.
Wait, wait. Are you telling me that because of how ingrained sports is in our society, it detracts from education? Because then I very much disagree with you there.
Okay, okay, sure, sure,
I
sure.
very much.
Why?
I don't think because society is. I feel that sports are a way for us to detach ourselves from the reality that we live in. Sports is a way to distress. Sports is a way
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
for us to
totally,
enjoy.
totally. I don't disagree with that.
But then
Yeah.
how does, for me personally, I've never said sports. But the thing is, has always been something where I was like, this is something that I can enjoy. This is something that I can enjoy. It's not because you're. I feel like you're putting education and sports in the same fields, even though they're not. So
Okay.
education
No,
and
yeah,
sports.
because I see the slippery slope that I'm on because then I'm not realizing. So I've got to just make this clear. I don't like I understand why people care for sports and stuff.
Uh huh.
I'm not really a big like I don't watch a lot of games
Uh huh.
or any really. Don't
Uh huh.
that's not it's not for me basically.
Okay. Uh huh.
But I get why people do, so I'm not against that at all.
Yeah.
But I'm super into movies, and you can make the same argument against
Yeah.
movies and their presence in
Yes.
society, right? You can make the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to retrace my argument, and if it seems like I'm just being slippery and everything,
Mm-hmm.
it's because I am. But I think it might be interesting to have an argument like
Yeah.
this anyway.
Yeah. My main thing is that there are two separate spheres of society.
Hmm. That's fair, right? Because sports you're saying is like in the sort of what's that thing called? It's like relaxation,
Yes.
recreation,
Yeah,
right?
it's recreational,
So
and
it's R and
also
R kind of stuff. It's all of the other like fun stuff,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Also I just have to say this, especially in America, from a financial perspective,
Hmm.
it does not make sense for popular sports like basketball and football to schedule their games, especially at times where people are literally educating themselves. You will not, like for example, when we for if the audience didn't know this, um,
Kane.
Kane and I went to school together. Um, there are and we have okay. So here's the thing: you and I went to school together.
Hmm.
There were rarely times where a sports game was playing while we were going to school. For basketball,
I
I'm
see
talking
what you're
about
saying. Yeah,
because
yeah,
here's the
absolutely.
thing. Here's the
It
thing.
was never a distraction.
It
Yeah,
was never a distraction. Afterwards, when school was done and we had time to ourselves, then we could watch these games because they were live and they were like, let's enjoy it. I think it's completely wrong to say that sports takes away from education because sports does not cater to the same does not
time and the same
um
sphere.
it doesn't reflect the same how do I say this?
No, I agree with what you're
It
saying
doesn't
though.
it doesn't
Yeah.
take from the it doesn't take from the same I guess resources, attention from the same people. Like the attention that we give to education is not the same as the attention we give sports.
Sure.
There, that's my thing on it. Again,
So I have a question for you.
poorly
I have a
worded though.
question for you.
Okay, what is it?
No, no, no. So if I'm gonna reiterate your point because I think I agree with you, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically like
Yeah.
sports, even though that they're super important, they never actually distract from education because they're never done at the exact same time. They're never
Yeah.
done. Now, I have a question for you, and this is, I think I might fully know your answer, right?
Okay.
And you're probably gonna completely disagree with me.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll know what my stance on it is just by me asking the question.
Okay.
But
Okay.
do you think sports recruitment as a way for people to get educated, as a way for people to get into schools,
Oh,
do you
okay.
think
All right.
that should exist? Do you think that's like a good thing?
Are you elaborate on that? Because
So here's the point, right? And
yeah,
this
I'm
is
a little
something that I
confused.
want to be super careful about, right? Because
Uh huh.
so I don't know how to phrase this in a way that doesn't like insult a lot of people because I don't want to, right?
Uh
That's
huh.
not my intention.
Yeah.
But I do get the thought sometimes, and I see it a lot from other people as well.
Uh huh.
That do you notice how I'm being very like, you
Yeah,
know,
you're being very. You're dancing
skirty around
around.
the topic?
You're dancing around the topic
I'm
right now.
prancing around it.
Yeah.
But basically, oh yeah, here's what I'm gonna say just straight out, right?
Yeah.
Please don't hurt me, please. Um, a lot of athletic recruits, I feel like
Uh huh.
sometimes I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's a valid part of the process. I don't think it's a valid way to sort of like sometimes I just question the whole thing of like recruitment
Okay.
because it gets really, really irritating when you have some people that get in through like a very designated criteria, which is like, this, and this. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like
Yeah.
testing,
Yeah.
essays, everything,
Uh huh. Yeah.
right? And then for some reason, another person can like, and this is me being crude about it, right? But throw a ball really far and then just smash through all of that and get into it,
Okay.
like whatever.
Yeah.
And that can feel a little irritating, right? It can feel a
Yes.
little like, why does this matter?
Uh huh.
And when you go by these schools' criteria of like, we're trying to find the best and brightest,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, oh, but you throw a ball really far. It's like,
Yes.
but how does that go with your mission? It feels weird. Now, I
Okay. So.
understand the reason why they do it. I understand that they do it because it gives them money. And I
Mm-hmm.
also know that this minute it stops giving money,
Mm-hmm.
they'll stop too, right? They get that one advantage. And I
Yes.
also know, and here's the real thing, right? That like
Mm-hmm.
sports is also a great way for people from otherwise like underprivileged backgrounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
To sort of get into schools that maybe they normally wouldn't have had the access to,
Yes.
not because of a lack of like, intelligence or qualification, but just of the way that their lives function. And so
Yeah.
I think in that way, sports is good. But
Yes.
then you get recruited for skiing and you get recruited for field hockey.
Oh
You get
God.
recruited for and then you get the whole scandal of the USC thing and like the
Okay.
Operation
All
Varsity
right.
Blues,
Uh huh.
which is like diving and water polo, and it's like
Okay.
what who's watching that? No offense,
Mm.
that's like thousands of millions of people I
Yeah.
offended who play the sport, and
Uh
like
huh.
maybe dozens who watch the sport.
Uh huh.
But like you, what's your take on it? You're gonna disagree with me.
So,
I
am
totally
I am
get it.
I am I getting the? Am I? So let me try to rephrase this. Are
Sure,
you
go ahead.
saying that these athletes
Yes.
they're taking spots that are
Yeah, that's a very good way to
that they're
phrase it.
taking out they're taking these spots that do not
See, now you're phrasing me as like a
that
very
do not
jealous
deserve
individual.
that do not.
Just how dare you with your with
Oh
your
my
with
god.
your skills?
So, okay, so yeah,
Maybe is all of this just jealousy? Is
no
all
no
of
no
this
no no.
whole
Okay.
feeling just this is so sad. I feel like such
Uh,
a terrible person.
so here's the thing. I can see where you're coming from there.
Mm,
Um, I don't know exactly what the admissions process is like. I think it makes sense to. I think it makes sense to put athletes and non-athletes together in terms of securing spots for a certain class, right? And also, it is a little bit strange how schools are selecting these students, non-school students, based on their academic achievements, um, and their extracurricular activities,
mm,
and they're like, and they'll also argue that yeah, if you have all the extracurricular activities in the world, but your grades aren't lacking, we're probably not going to accept you because we want you to survive. We want you to do well out of school first and foremost, right? Um,
what? Oh no.
about the
Oh
same
no, this is a
time
technical
though, they'll accept
difficulty.
students
Wait.
who are not very uh, they aren't very good
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
at school, simply put, and but
yeah.
their extracurricular activity being their sport kind of brings them forward. I honestly do not have a answer for that. I don't know. I don't see. It's hard because you have students who genuinely need sports or have benefited from sports to get an education. They
Which
would
is
that
good,
they
and I'm not dishing that at all. No.
exactly and they truly understand how incredibly privileged and lucky they
But
are
if
to
you're
be
from
get.
the East Coast and your family makes millions of dollars and everything, and you're
Uh-huh.
completely fine, and then and then you ski or something.
Hmm.
I don't know what I have against skiers, but do you get what I mean of how it feels just
Yeah.
slightly unfair? And this is when I start to feel like maybe our society values sports more than education. But actually, what's true
I don't
instead,
think I
really,
don't I don't think
it
it's
values
that
money
money
more than
money. It values more
education.
money. I mean,
That's the
we are a capitalist
that's the
society.
core of it.
You're attacking more of the symptom of it rather than the actual
Ladies and
problem.
gentlemen, I have found my problem. I am a jealous human being. I'm also realizing, I'm also realizing that what I'm
Uh,
actually against is not the fact that, like, athletes are getting advantages, but it's the fact that it just seems hypocritical, and that it's like, what is it here? It's money that's driving the system.
I mean,
And then
everything
it
is though.
feels, no, 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 I know money drives everything, right? I know that, but I'm just saying that, like, then I feel like it's perverting education a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels like it's changing the whole thing a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, but then you could
This is going to
also.
sound terrible because we're not even like 2 years out of school yet, out of the same school we went to. But I definitely felt that a little bit.
But here's my thing though. You could also argue though that, let's say, a business, especially during this time where Black Lives Matter is sort of the hot topic at this moment, which
What? Where is this going?
let me elaborate, because you're saying
Okay,
that
sure.
money is the issue, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the you know what? I'm not gonna say it. This is a total. I know for a fact I'm gonna go into a totally different topic, and we have like 4 minutes left in this podcast, and I'm not gonna go there. I'm just gonna say that honestly, when you describe the situation to me, that like the whole is recruitment necessary, I honestly do not have an answer for that, because that is such a complicated issue that hits both that, so your socioeconomic status, uh,
Yeah.
financial, economic,
See, but all I
social.
think about the socioeconomic status thing is that, like, colleges don't do a good enough job of finding people who don't have a great, who, I don't, who are underprivileged, right?
Yeah.
Like, they don't do a good job at all,
Mm.
right? Because they rely on programs and they rely on things, so they don't do enough outreach themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why you get a lot of people coming from the same backgrounds anyway.
Uh-huh.
And here's an accusation on affirmative action, but sometimes the people with benefits do well for themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then, like, it seems like you're not even fixing anything.
Yeah.
So that's an issue
My
too.
my
Yeah.
my main issue with some college athletes is that, I think I'm speaking again. I'm speaking mainly from personal experience as someone who has, and this is not an indictment against any football players, but
Go off, go
I
off.
had a I had
We
a I was in a class, and I was in a political science class that was filled with a lot of juniors and seniors there.
sure.
Um, a lot of the several of the juniors were football students
Hmm.
and athletes. My one thing that I've noticed is that some college athletes just do not care about the education. And that my issue with that is I feel like schools need to do a better job of what kind of kids they're bringing in.
Student they try, but then it's hard to evaluate that, right? Because you
It
didn't say
it,
anything
it,
on your application.
it is, but I feel like your grades are definitely an indication. Because the thing is, if you have not
But
tried
why
for
should it
four,
matter if you bring in money to the school?
I guess at this point it's all about principle, right? Like if you are a school and you genuinely care about the image that your students give you, I mean,
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, also one point I want to say is that we both, and this is risky because we're not even 2 years out of the school, but we both went to the same school, right? The
yeah,
same,
yeah.
and
Let's not name the school by hand in case they sue
we're
us.
not gonna name that, but I'm just gonna
Yeah,
say that, like, I came in after you did, right?
yeah.
I think that's not too much information. And the school was in, no, I'm kidding, but like, uh, but the school itself, I was sort of expecting this really, intellectually vibrant community, and like how
Mm,
everything was supposed to be this, and this.
mm-hmm,
Did I will say the focus on athletics, and there was definitely a focus, by the way.
mm-hmm.
I
There
don't think
was.
that's too much.
Mm-hmm.
Hampered it a little bit. It did.
The
But
education.
the vibrancy of the environment, like, for sure.
I disagree. I completely disagree.
No, I
I
totally,
I I think it
because
hampered.
there were recruits, dude.
No,
There were so many recruits for very specific sports, and
okay,
so then
but I don't think education really mattered though. In my opinion, I don't know. I don't think that's
what? So
what's
then yeah,
no no
you
no no no
agree.
no 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 no. I don't think the sport. I don't think the sports you. I don't honestly. I don't think it hampered the intellectual vibrancy of the place. I
It
think it
changed the
hampered.
student body of the class of their class, though.
Um, I don't have an. What do you mean? What do you mean changed?
Well, I mean, like student athletes, and they literally are. It changes our class from just people that do, you know, one certain thing, which is like, you know, making education their top focus or whatever, into another certain thing where it's like education and sports is now your focus.
Okay, but
So
a lot of
suddenly
those.
the vibe is different.
Okay, but a lot of the student athletes at our school were actually very smart though.
No,
A
yeah,
lot of a lot of them
that's
did well at school. A lot of them did well in our school. I don't know what
yeah,
you're
no,
talking.
you're not wrong.
My
Ah,
issue,
shoot.
my issue with this, my issue with us. This is the last point that I want to make, is that that being a student athlete at our school gave you certain judicial privileges, in the sense that if you got in trouble for
Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know that.
if you got in trouble for something, you would more likely than not be excused from it or given a lighter sentence
But
than
that's
someone who did.
wrong.
That's wrong. It is definitely
Yeah,
wrong.
it is
But
wrong. Okay.
it's no. What are you saying?
This
It's
is a
wrong. Then
weird. No, no, no.
no.
You know, you're right. You are right. I'm saying that what you're saying is morally, ethically. That's a bad
Yes,
thing.
but we can talk about that another time. We can talk about that another time.
Okay. All right. So that was basically a pretty subtle way of saying that we should end it soon. I'd like to say that this was a drive-through podcast, part two. Right? Just finished with
Yep.
Yami. My name is Kane. I won this argument. I think sports are
Okay. Well, okay. Well,
a
let's just.
demon to our society. Anyone who practices it is the same as a cultist and a Satanist, and it's
You're just jealous. That's all you are. You're just a jealous
I'm
man.
I'm a
You are a jealous.
jealous human being. I think I made a valuable. I think I have a genuine point in the
You do.
our school vibe was different. It was definitely
That's
different
true.
because of
That's
the
true.
emphasis on athletes.
Yeah.
Like that was true.
Hmm.
Because then the whole thing becomes about like, you know, here's the game and there's the this, and that's not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying it's different from just a school like this is what we do
Hmm. Yeah.
versus like that.
Yeah.
Okay, you agree? Okay, fine. All right, fine. All right, whatever. Anyway, this is it. This is going to be the end of the podcast. This is very, very smooth and everything.
You're
Anyway,
jealous. You're a jealous white man. That's what you are.
shut
You're a
up.
jealous.
Shut up.
You're white man. White. All
Okay,
right.
yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. Go Sharks. Don't know what that means. And that was my middle school. I don't even know what I'm saying. Anyway, what? And if you don't listen to this podcast, 20 years of bad luck on you, and 20 years
Oh
of
my
bad
God.
luck on your son or your daughter
Okay.
or whoever they end up wanting to be. They. Or, God. Okay. We're done.
Last
We're done. We're done.